The Anatomy of War by Richard Jonathan O. Taduran, Ph.D. I was watching an interview with Professor Jiang Shueqin about the ongoing war involving Iran when something struck me. Discussions of war almost always revolve around strategy. Analysts talk about deterrence, military capability, geopolitical alliances, and the possible outcomes of military operations. Maps appear on television screens. Arrows move across borders. Experts debate whether one side has the advantage or whether another has miscalculated. In these sanitized rooms, the language is precise. Analysts speak of surgical strikes and targeted operations as if war were a clean clinical procedure performed with a laser. These discussions are not unimportant. Wars are, after all, fought and justified within political and strategic frameworks. But as I listened to the conversation, I could not help but think about how different war looks from the vantage point of someone who has worked in its aftermath. Over the course of my career as a forensic scientist, I have participated in missions where I witnessed firsthand what conflict leaves behind. The reality is not a map or a policy debate. It is destruction, it is loss, and it can be horrifying. Fragments in the dust. The first thing one encounters in the aftermath of violence is the destruction of place. Entire neighborhoods can be reduced to rubble. Buildings collapse into twisted concrete and steel. Burned vehicles sit abandoned along damaged roads. What used to be homes, markets, and schools become fields of debris. Within these ruins, the human toll becomes visible. The dead must be recovered. In many cases, victims are found beneath collapsed structures. Sometimes they lie in open areas where explosions occurred. The scenes are rarely orderly. Explosive weapons, in particular, leave behind chaotic environments where the force of the blast scatters debris and sometimes human remains over a wide area. For those tasked with recovering the dead, the work can be grim. Bodies are not always intact. Explosions may fragment remains, leaving scattered limbs or smaller parts that must be carefully retrieved. Fingers, ears, and other fragments may be found among the rubble. Every piece must be documented and collected. What looks like a nightmare to an outsider becomes the working environment of those responsible for the recovery. And yet, even amid these scenes, the work proceeds with method and discipline. Forensic teams move systematically through the debris. Remains are carefully recovered, catalogued, and transported for examination. Identification becomes one of the central goals. Families deserve to know what happened to their loved ones. The dead deserve to be recognized as individuals, not anonymous casualties of a distant conflict. In these moments, the purpose of the work becomes clear. Even when the circumstances are chaotic, there remains a responsibility to gather the dead and restore their identities. Resilient hearts in rubble. Equally striking are the survivors. In the wake of conflict, communities attempt to continue their lives amid devastation. Homes may be destroyed, infrastructure damaged, and basic services disrupted. Access to food and potable water becomes uncertain. Hospitals struggle to function. Families must adapt to a landscape that has changed almost overnight. What was once familiar becomes unpredictable. Roads are damaged. Buildings are unsafe. Fields and open spaces that once served as places for recreation or agriculture may now conceal unexploded ordnance. A landmine or an unexploded bomb hidden beneath the soil can turn an ordinary step into a deadly risk. For children, the consequences are particularly stark. In many post-conflict environments, parents warn their children not to wander too far from home. A field that might look like an inviting place to play could conceal dangers left behind by the fighting. Childhood, which should be defined by curiosity and freedom, becomes constrained by the lingering hazards of war. And yet, what is equally remarkable is the persistence of life. Despite trauma and uncertainty, people continue to move forward. Markets reopen in damaged districts. Families repair what they can of their homes. Schools attempt to resume classes even when resources are limited. In the midst of hardship, communities show a resilience that is often overlooked. The determination to rebuild and create a sense of normalcy is a quiet but powerful response to the violence that preceded it. Witnessing this resilience leaves a deep impression. It reminds those who work in these environments that even in the shadow of death and destruction, human beings possess an extraordinary capacity to endure and adapt. Lingering scars of strategy. Questions about who is right in a war, which side should prevail, or what strategies are justified are matters typically debated by politicians, diplomats, and military leaders. Those decisions are far above the pay grade of a forensic scientist. What those of us in the forensic sciences encounter is something else entirely. We encounter the consequences. We see the destruction of communities, the recovery of the dead, and the struggles of survivors attempting to rebuild their lives. While strategists use surgical strike to imply cleanliness and precision, we are the ones literally performing the surgery on the aftermath, not with a laser, but with a trowel and a scalpel, painstakingly reassembling what those precise strikes have torn apart. Our role is to provide the objective data that policymakers are eventually forced to address, to document the facts that transform abstract collateral damage back into human beings. This perspective inevitably produces mixed feelings about war. There is pride in performing the work well, recovering the dead, identifying victims, and contributing to the restoration of dignity and truth. But there is also an unavoidable awareness of the profound suffering that conflict leaves in its wake. If there is one thing the anatomy of war reveals, it is this. Beneath the language of strategy and geopolitics lies the lived reality of human loss, and it is in that reality that the true cost of war is most clearly seen.